The way mankind treats its animal is a reflection of our consciousness and our dignity and our evolution, beloved. I have received this deep question by a beloved around the world asking, Devi Mayi Ma, I am so deeply hurt. How can I cope and deal with the situation with animal cruelty and the neglect that we see around the world? And that question comes from a very deep place. So I stay tuned because we're going to delve deep into the subject of the sacred bond of the animal with us human. It's beyond the physical. It's about our interconnectedness with all living beings, and you see that reflected into a lot of spiritual teaching in different traditions. For instance, in Buddhism or with the Native American tribe, where they variegated certain animals. And so when you are feeling the deep, deep suffering and pain while you go through your spiritual awakening for other living beings, it's a necessary pain, a necessary awakening, because the moment you awaken through your true divine presence, this is when you start feeling what's happening in other kingdom, especially in the animal kingdom. And so it's a wonderful sign about you, beloved, who's asking this question, and many of you are listening here. So in this video, we're going to look, how do you cope with what's happening on the planet? What are the remedies? What can you do? And to alleviate this pain and become a force, a voice for the voiceless in the world, especially the animal here, because we are discussing that subject. So if you look back into ancient history, ancient religion, like for instance, the ancient Egyptian, they venerated the cats. They look at them as divine being, as divine symbol. And you see that also with the cow, the thought of the cow as a goddess. Hetza, the goddess of milk and motherhood. And you see that also in other ancient culture, like ancient Greek, ancient in India. The dog, for example, in Nepal, they worship the dog. Even in ancient Hinduism, they look at the dog as the messenger of the god of that Yama. He was the protector of the underworld, the grave, and he was worshipped as such. And you see that also even in European mythology, like the raven is being seen as a great being. You see that also the dog in ancient Egypt is the same. Anubis was a god. He was also the god of the funerary pipe, and he was the guardian. And it is fascinating when you look at all those culture, ancient religion, how they really worship and saw the interconnectedness, and they variegated that sacred bond with the animal. And you would even say in ancient Christianity, the lamb and the sheep were deeply associated with Jesus Christ. So that deep bond has ever been there, eternal, that interconnectedness. The moment you awaken to your true divine presence, and you start realizing your interconnectedness is the moment that you cannot be blind to what's happening in the animal kingdom, the animal cruelty and the neglect. And it's beyond a moral obligation, it's a calling, it's a divine calling. And it was for this one, and it became a gate to the divine within you being. An animal can do that, beloved. It was for me when I was a little girl with cats. I was so in love with all animals. It was a natural. I was born that way. And some of you maybe are. But often this awakening happened for the suffering of other sentient beings happen when your Anahata is opening up, the beginning of your full true spiritual awakening. And it can be so devastating, the deep pain and suffering, and it was for this one. It was many decades ago, and when I discovered the animal cruelty, what we do in farm factory, in fur industry, in dairy industry, and the hunting, and even out in the world, the homeless animal. I was taking a program just because I wanted to help the animal. I was really young in those days. And when I saw the footage, I was beyond devastated, and it put me into such a depressive mode. And I was for 6 months mourning and grieving, and I used to tell my ex-husband, I could not live in a world that is so cruel. I could not understand how a human being with such a great intelligence and a heart could do that to another being, another sentient being. And I would linger into that for 6 months and deeply in pain, and I didn't want to be in this world. I could not comprehend, because that's what happened when your Anahata opened up, and especially associated with that is you become an empath. And so I can tell you, it was the beginning of a new life for this one, so is for you, beloved. I became a vegan overnight, and I threw away all my leather, and I changed everything about my life, and I started become a speaker. And I was already a spiritual teacher in those days, a spiritual guide, you could say, or a master. I was already like, I wanted to do everything to help the animal. I started speaking in conference and being involved in the movement and writing article in an international magazine, being in documentary, and even wherever I travel, I would take action, even if it was just feeding a cow or feeding a homeless, rescuing an animal. So here are 3 remedies for you, beloved. I can tell you it will help tremendously. It will make a world of a difference for you in your spiritual awakening to come to term and bring inner peace and be an instrument of grace and divine love. So the first one is become a karma yogi. Devi Mayi call it karma yogi. It basically means start doing volunteering. Karma yoga is a branch of yoga. It just means that you are doing an action that is without expecting a fruit in return. You're doing it out of deep compassion, great compassion, maha karuna, with divine love, with empathy, not to be compensated, but you're doing it with expecting nothing in return, because it is your true nature to want to help and make a difference. And there's nothing more than taking proactive action and be out in the world to alleviate your own pain and suffering. I can tell you that. because not only it was for this one so many decades ago, which feels like a different lifetime, but for many I've seen around. Because prior that I was diagnosed with advanced breast cancer, I was very involved in the animal rights movement. I even was a speaker at the International Animal Conference, and I led a whole conference, thousands of people into meditation, and did the opening night ceremony. I met so many people, and I have seen how it attracts people who are fully awakening at the level of the Anahata, and they have a lot of empathy. And even people who were working in certain industry that was very abusive to animal, and they started awakening and taking action. So I can tell you, be active, be a karma yogi, and do it with incredible compassion and divine love. Number 2 remedy is, I see so many people who are involved out in the world and helping the animal, and or want to help the animal, but they're not helping themselves. The best way, beloved, you can help yourself is embark on the spiritual path. If you're not, if you are you doing sadhana? Are you doing spiritual practices like the Siddha, Satchit Kriya, Ananda meditation, the Kriya Yoga, to work with the life force energy? Because there's nothing more powerful to consciously working with the life force energy to transform your own energy, to get rid of the karmic structure, and that really is getting into the way for you from experiencing joy and happiness and your divine presence. And especially practicing mindfulness, having tools that help you, and be with a spiritual guide and teacher that can guide you through this process, and meditate and be with a sangha. A sangha is just a word for Sanskrit, which means community, to feel that you're belonging and that you have the support. And so that will empower you to alleviate a lot of that pain and that suffering that you feel. And number 3, and that one is the hardest one. And that one is probably the most effective, because they all work together in synergy. And I would recommend to you to apply all of them. And the number 3 is not only bless the animal in your thoughts, in your words, in your action, but also especially the people who are harming them. I know that's a hard one, forgiving them. And that was the first thing I did, because I had learned that from forgiving my father when I was in my early 30s, who was so abusive, that it is the forgiveness of your own heart. It is the best medicine to relieve your own pain. So release them, send them blessing. Even though I know it's very difficult, baby step at a time, you can do it. It will relieve you from your own sorrow and your own heart. And that's how I was able to spring up, come out, and be the voice for the voiceless out in the world, and to become an embodiment of great compassion and empathy and divine love. And you can have empathy and yet learn how to protect your own energy. And that's what we do at Devi's Grace, is when you are on the spiritual path, you learn how to protect your own energy. So you can be fully active in the world and be a voice for the voiceless, and do beautiful work and emanate an aura of divine love and experience your divine presence, and make a true contribution out in the world, and allow your heart, your beautiful open heart and the beautiful divine being of light that you are, who is awakening to this, the suffering of other beings, to be there for them, to be an embodiment of grace and of great compassion. And through that, by forgiving the people who harms them, you bombarding them with a lot of light, and through that, you'll be surprised. You are not only rising your vibrancy, your vibrational frequency field, but you also are doing that with them. And who knows, I can tell you that from my own experience, they will start awakening them too. And this is how we expand the consciousness. We rise the consciousness. We rise the vibrational frequency on our planet and our cosmic evolution as human beings. So let's radiate the light together and watch this coming video, because this is how I came to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And it's a fascinating story. You never know where it's going to lead you. And this is coming up and is the greatest life lesson. And I will inspire you, motivate you. So click on the button after and share this video and with friends and family, and subscribe if you haven't done so. And thank you for being there. Any comment, just reach out. And also come in Divine Presence, that song. It's always the last Saturday of the month via Zoom video. You can read about it, click in the comment section. It's right there, and also in the description. And what Devi Ma started doing now is also exploration guidance right now. There are 30 minutes. It's for very limited time. I made myself accessible to you, beloved. So reach out and click the button. You can read there and then learn more and join Devi's Grace Sangha, our online community, which we're working on having our own app now. And so you will get the support that you need, and so we can be here for you.